podcast excellence since 2005. This is the King of Podcasts radio network, kingofpodcasts.com.
I have devoted 11 episodes to this subject, and we're going to do one more.
We are all a little depraved and debaucherous. Here is the King of Podcasts.
Yes, basically 1 out of every 5 episodes, I have to focus on sugar dating, sugar daddies, and sugar babies. And it's not just because, listen, if I wanted to do a show that was just on that the whole time, I could. But it is one of the essential subjects when it comes to what is depraved and debaucherous in society, in culture, in dating, what this program has been all about since May of 23, since I decided to go and change the name of the show. And doing this show, again, what a great year for Depraved and Debaucherous. I really have enjoyed it. Got a lot of downloads. Like, the show's done very well. I didn't expect the show to be like the second most downloaded podcast series in my network. The rest of podcast was number 1. But Depraved and Debaucherous was running head to head with it all the time because there were a couple of episodes that really, really got people up and going. And I can appreciate that. And there was one episode that would have been under the Depraved and Debaucherous before. It was a episode I did about the new posterior prophylactic is now approved. Let's just say I got tens of thousands of views on that. I don't know why, but that's been like something that has been caught on, and it's like I can't monetize it. What am I going to do? It sucks. But if you want to go ahead and monetize it all, I do have a couple places you can go ahead and donate over on my website, kingofpodcasts.com. Go right to the top of the homepage. Right there, the navigation, you'll find a couple things you can go and do right up at the very top. Number 1, you could go ahead and buy me a cup of coffee. You could do that. You're welcome to go and do that if you'd like to. You could also go ahead and help me out through PayPal. And that's paypal.com/King of Podcasts. Just look for that. Well, actually, no, I have a PayPal app. Right. The PayPal and the Cash App links are on the website, as well as the Buy Me a Coffee link if you want to go do that as well. So if you'd like to do that, please do. We'll really appreciate that. It'll be wonderful. And of course, all my content's there available for you to go ahead and peruse all you want. And I hope you'll consider it. Now, back to the content here. And let's get back to the fact that one of the shows that performed best on the network, on this program this year, was the Psychology of Sugar Dating, Sugar Babies, and Sugar Dating. Now, there was quite a few details that came from this particular episode. And it was a study that came out in the Journal of Sex Research that came out at this time, February of this year. And I brought up that story. I was one of the few people that did. And I want to bring that back up again one more time just to kind of talk about what was being talked about there. And then honestly go through a comprehensive look at what sugar dating looked like this year. And the stories that we brought up on the program of the 11 episodes that I did. It's fascinating. Because as part of the depraved and debaucherousness of women, young, independent women now these days, if they're not looking for traditional relationships, what are they doing? Part of it is we know that we have some issues where women have been kind of programmed and kind of brainwashed, I would say, into various areas to continue to be independent, because that doesn't need to be where you just need to be your career field. Because there are some of those people that say, well, I mean, some of the women that are out there that don't think they need to go and find themselves a career job or find some job that's not going to pay enough. They're going to use their body. They're going to use their beauty, their youth to be able to go ahead and make something more of themselves. Which is why in 2020, we saw the rise of OnlyFans. And under my When I'm Not Podcasting series, I talked extensively about that and the issues that are on there. Now, if you want to find those episodes, you can find those over my YouTube feed. It's at YouTube at King of Podcasts, youtube.com at King of Podcasts. Look for that there, and you'll find past episodes where I've done that. Just take a look. So now, they talked about where sugar dating was being done for an exchange for companionship, intimacy, or both. So it's the other opposite of, well, I'm going to put my body out there for me use. Instead, you're just using your body and your looks and your appeal and hopefully a personality and charisma that you have in order to go ahead and draw to one person. And you might have seen the video that I talked about on X on last week's episode about Ivy Wren and how she was able to go ahead and do a kick stream. And we played back the clip of her getting a new bag, a new tennis bracelet from her sugar daddy for Black Friday for her Christmas gifts. Now, when we talked about this back in February, we talked about how sugar dating is predominantly focused on its differentiation from traditional sex work or public perceptions on entering such arrangements. And there was a gap in understanding the experiences and perspectives of the individuals involved and the dynamics of power and negotiation within. So just to get back and give a quick recursor, is that this was from a PhD student at the University of Texas at Austin, Kate Metcalf, a study author. And so when they went through and they found a couple of things that were going on, they showed that the benefactors and the participant ages range between 18 to 74 years old, which is why it's a good topic to talk about. Sugar babies significantly younger, on average 28.76 years. Sugar benefactors on average 48.15 years old. So again, on average 28-year-old sugar babies, 48-year-old sugar daddies, right? And then sugar babies on average engage in approximately 4 sugar dating arrangements in their lifetime. And for the benefactors, they report a highly average number of arrangements over 6 in their lifetime, with a greater propensity among benefactors to engage in multiple or sequential sugar dating relationships. These are the kind of things we learned about this is here. And majority of benefactors, the older sugar daddies, reported histories for paying for sexual activities, whether in nightclubs, online webcam services, or traditional sex workers. And that sugar daddy might be one avenue among the many they pursue for companionship and sexual interaction. So we went through all that before. And I went back and I did a bunch of clips where we talked about that. I want to also play some clips from the past episodes this year on sugar dating, sugar daddies, and sugar babies about what we learned along the way. So we'll start here back at the episode that I talked about back on February 7th. Of the ability for women to go ahead and say, hey, if they want a materialistic, selfish, clout-chasing, status-seeking relationship, they can ask for one. Okay? A question just as simple as, why do you need a sugar daddy? That question, 80% of the responses will tell you something about, but it'll be the way the intent is for. I'm going to say that of when I've posed that question, of that 80%, I will say that about 5 in 50% of those 80% of emails will come back, I want to be spoiled. I want to be treated like the woman I'm supposed to be treated like. And there's always some other attribute of like, well, I'm tired of being treated like this by guys not giving me what I want and what I deserve, things like that. The other part is always about, I need to make something for myself, mentorship. I want to build a business. I want somebody to build a business for me. I want somebody to go ahead and fund my business or mentor me and support me in that way. A lot of selfishness in there. Let's just make that clear. Okay. And I brought that up back then. And I do think maybe the number is not as high as I once thought. And I think because if you go ahead and you take more time and if you kind of bury into getting to know the girl and what brought her to this point of being supported this way, you actually find out it's not so much transactional. So I said 50%. I think it's probably a little bit less now because there's quite a few women that are a little bit more to that. Now, obviously there's ones that are not going to go ahead and want to talk about anything. Some that are just, that's just the mindset they have. For whatever reason, they're just not even going to bother to be considered anything else more of what they're doing with themselves. They just don't care. And that's okay. But that's one of the things I learned about in this. There's another clip. Daddy, there's a reason why women will flock to answer to you, even if you're not responding back. If you are new onto the site and you're on there and you just put a traditional site up there, a traditional profile up there, you're going to get responses. If you're halfway decent looking, there are even more responses. Because what you're going to get is you're going to get the attention of women that want you for what you have. So you have what's in your wallet. You have what you have in terms of your lifestyle, your income. It's as desirable as what women have as their vanity, as their looks, as their shape. It's valued in the same way. Women look at that as important as anything else on these sites, right? So they're looking at that part. If they also find that you also are, Give Daddy site, there's a reason why women will fall. Now, the other thing too that we mentioned in here is this part, that in the psychology I learned about this, is that in my own points of looking at all this, one of the things that was very interesting was the fact that, yes, there are going to be some that still have a bit of a money mind to it. But the truth is, if they're still looking for someone that's just naturally just wanting to be, if you just recognize what they're doing and recognize who they are and what they're all about, like if you are honestly approaching a woman on these sites and you're coming into it very sympathetic, not to the point of simp, but sympathetic and understanding and romantic, you'll be surprised how many women actually respond well to that. You put the right words down and you take time to kind of really something out there to understand their loneliness, understand the relationships they've gone through have gone bad, and there's a point that they've reached to this point here and why they're here. Yeah, it makes sense. And so some people really get into that. Now, again, that episode did very well. One of the most downloaded podcasts of the year of the Praise and Debaucherous. That's what I'm talking about right now. The following week, I did a Listeners React page, a Listeners React episode. There was much about that. We had a lot of feedback on that. Most feedback of the year of any episode I did of anything on the King of Podcasts radio network. But, that's what we had. And let me go and play a little bit of it for you. He goes on to say, quote, "It's funny that you say women are emotionally damaged by chads." Okay, she said chads. But yes, there are women that are emotionally damaged by, women are emotionally damaged. There are quite a few. If they're on the dating sites, they must be. I mean, how many women do we know that, if they're on a dating site, listen, if they were out and about in person and they were emotionally healthy, they would be picked up in person, no question. And a woman would feel comfortable, at least with the option or entertaining a guy that is trying to go ahead and talk her up. But when you don't have that and you're wanting to sit behind a paywall of a dating site or just behind a site, then that is something where there's a boundary that's being put extra in place because a woman doesn't want to give up that boundary. She's not going to just leave herself out there in the open. Now, that was on Valentine's Day. And one of the things I'll say with this as well is that I'll give benefit of the doubt. I know that in today's society, technology, texts, paywalls, it's all great boundaries and barriers for safety and preventative nature for women to go ahead and be able to go ahead and communicate. I get that part. And, you have to understand that there's been a lot of things where guys are not approaching like they used to. And it's still a feeling of like, well, does it feel comfortable to do that? A couple of reasons guys might not do that now is because of the part of the fact that there are quite a few guys, I'm pretty sure, that think that they might be running into a traditional, not a traditional woman, but somebody more modern, independent, but also wants to be supplemented, wants a discretionary income. And if you're going to meet up with them, then the ulterior motives might play out. And she might actually be looking for you to support her. Now, I'm not saying that you can't, you have to go and be scared of thinking, oh, she's going to take all my money. No, we don't have to necessarily think that way. But the thing is, you got to really, and that was the part I really didn't pay attention to. Like my mindset sometimes when it comes to dating, I'm still like a 15-year-old. I really am. Because I don't take the time to think a couple of dates ahead. What does this mean if I decide to go out with her just because she's pretty and I like her? Okay, I don't think of the fact of, and again, I sound like a novice when I say this, but this is why I'm on this program here, because I'm sure there's a lot of younger people that might feel the same way I do here. But it comes down to the fact that I am not thinking ahead of like, what are going to be some of the things that I'm going to be doing with this girl that I'm going to be spending money and time and resources and, abandoning other people or abandoning other things to go ahead and be going out with her. Like that's the part. How much control am I going to have over that? Because I'm going to be sharing my time and then I'm going to be sharing more than that. And also doing things that I might not want to do just because I'm trying to get closer to her. And how many guys do that because of that fact of sex? That's the other part. How many guys are going on these sites for the aspect of getting sex? And if they think, well, if it's just a payday that she just wants and I'll go and get what I want, then that's what happens. And for some guys, they're going to say that as an excuse for themselves to say, well, at least I'm not going after a prostitute. I'm not going after an escort. Because it's not going much on anymore. It's more about everything's behind an online wall. And it's not like it was before because we don't have Craigslist or Backpage and other places like that. We don't have those places anymore. So now we have this. That's what's really come down to. Anyway, more comments that came from the episode on Valentine's Day. And for some bad couples, bad relationships, this is the day that's required for the guy to step up and actually act like you did when he first dated you. And for those of you guys out there that think you have to go and do that, I seriously tell you, don't do this. It's a mistake. Okay? I always say this for Valentine's Day. You should not have to think that Valentine's Day is the one that you actually needed to go and do right by your woman. Because if you're thinking this is what you need to go and do, there's something wrong. Let's just make that clear too. All right. Went along and I started talking about how open the world is to sugar daddies and sugar babies. Because it was more of a subject we learned about as well, about how people thought about this whole subject as well. Like it was quite interesting to see that there were, in other parts of the world, it's just commonplace. You didn't really think of it that way, but it was. And in that episode, I talked about a story from SciPost that said that from nearly 100 researchers around the globe, that the largest investigation to date of attitude towards sugary relationships offered unprecedented insights into how economic conditions, societal norms, psychological traits, and cultural values converge to shape perceptions and acceptance of the arrangements. And it was published in the Archives of Sexual Behavior. Let's go ahead and play back something that was said on that program. Sugar babies engaged in 4 sugar dating arrangements throughout their lifetime with a range that spanned from 1 to 50. That's the babies. And then for the benefactors, it's a different story. Over 6 arrangements, highlighting a potentially greater propensity among benefactors to engage in multiple or sequential sugar dating relationships. 1/3 of the sugar babies indicated a history of engaging in other transactional sex work, such as stripping, selling content, or other online webcam services, or traditional sex work. 1/3. And then they also mentioned the motivations. They said that, primary motivation for sugar babies into these arrangements was financial compensation, aligning with the expectations about the transactional nature of sugar dating. Now, still going on and talking back to that research, but then moving on into what was being said in a larger aspect. Let's just put it like this. There are a lot of findoms on there. Financial dominatrixes are prominent. And one thing I tell you for the most part, out of some of the sugar babies I've actually communicated with, what they don't realize is, they don't know they're findoms. They don't realize that, you don't care about anything in human component when it comes to the person you're talking to. You don't really care about the person that you feel like, you might feel, if you're on there and a one really exhibits pretty privilege, or they just feel like, they feel like they deserve more, and they've had bad relationships themselves. They had their own trauma, but of course they've untreated, no therapy, nothing about it. They just continue to go and, empower themselves by thinking, they just need to be hard-nosed, ignorant, stubborn, and just expect money and just like a privilege. And I really do think that's something that should be considered. Findoms, and that's nothing against all of you, but for those that just feel like money is the only answer for everything, that's, I would say, would be part of the personality disorders that's under the gamut of like what psychologists are going to look at. And I really do believe that's true. I really do believe that. And that's the part where I was like, we need to get past that part. That's not good. But that was one of the things I also looked at as well. Now, what was interesting as well is that I also did a story about how there were school teachers seeking a sugar daddy. And, it was one of those episodes that YouTube dinged it. I don't know. They dinged it age restricted. I was like, all right. I don't know if they just thought I was talking about teachers that were trying to have sex with their students, I guess, or something like that. But it wasn't like that. So I don't know what that was all about. But either which way, we look here, and I also talked about that. But for those who didn't get a chance to hear the episode because it was behind, YouTube restriction, and that might have just been missed in the, gamut of like finding episodes. Well, here's some of what I said at that time about school teachers seeking their sugar daddy savior. Because women are realizing, hey, with inflation and where things are right now, there's still money to be made. So the sugar daddy stuff has becoming an option still more than ever. And this needs to be an awareness we have out there. So another teacher they talked to, a professor from Arizona, says she pursued a PhD so she can move to a more lucrative position. And her first full-time job, she made $33,000 a year. Says the salary wasn't enough to make ends meet. She took on 2 additional jobs, community college, working at a community college, and bartending. Says arrangements are usually long-term, meaning she often gets an allowance based on a regular basis. Getting paid seems so strange to say. One person paid my rent, another person contributed to my film project, and one guy I dated for a long time, he gave me a certain amount every week. But I've noticed, being a frequenter on these sites, just saying, because like I said, they're better dating sites than the conventional dating sites. I can tell you that for a fact. But I can tell you now more than ever, there are more women on those sites seeking basically an ATM machine. And it's true. But that's always going to last so long. So for those women, they're going to think they're going to be able to just make money off of that on a regular basis. Obviously, we know there's a lot of women that kind of just use their beauty for as long as they can. And when that money runs dry, they're in a bad place. Without much wisdom, without much everything else. It's just a bit of a foolish trade-off to do that. More on this subject. How depraved and debaucherous do you have to be a school teacher trying to serve a moral example to your students and then doing this kind of stuff on the side? Oh, listen, I'm not here to judge, but I'm going to call it out as I see it. Like, if you want to go and keep it quiet and not let anybody see it, I understand that part, but I'm just saying somebody should keep an eye on that. The average sugar baby makes, and this is from 2018, Seeking.com said that the average sugar baby makes $2,800 monthly for their daddies. Well, we know that these days that doesn't even cut it compared to the amount of rent or expenses that any sugar baby has. Now, remember, we also talked a while back about women that are single and modern that struggle to supplement their own income. Like, now, as another addendum to what I was talking about when it comes to sugar babies and sugar daddies, we talked about the modern independent woman not being able to go and pay rent, pay their income, and be able to go and sustain a lifestyle that they wanted to go and live. So the struggle was there. And we went through quite a hearing all about that all throughout the year, to where sugar dating wasn't an option so much anymore. Because, I mean, the same thing for the guys. How much money did they have to invest? Which is on something that's just a luxury. It's not a necessity. We all know that. But that's one of those things we also had to go and worry about as well. But, you know, there was a lot of things that were going like that. Probably next week I will do another subject where I'll talk about some of the other areas, that like some of the trends that were going on within the Pray the Debaucherous program here. Soft boy era, drizzle, friendship marriages, the 4B movement. We're probably going to go through all those trends next week. That's probably what I'm going to go to next, which will be quite interesting and quite fascinating. And I do a lot about dating apps and all that. I won't go into too much of that there, but as I said as well, one of the other areas I looked at as well in all of this was what I said in that last clip, that sugar dating sites being the replacement for desperate dating apps. So here's what I said. And part of it is just because, again, it was a social experiment for me. Because really not for me, you know, I'm not the kind of person to go jet setting or try to meet, but it's like, it was my way of just interacting with other women. Because I felt like I need to go ahead and build it's for communication, basically. Because it is really tough to go ahead and just let myself be opened up and like just, you know, other than small talk, I don't open up that much to many people these days. You know, family, close family, yes. I don't keep to a lot of close friends. I don't do that either. I mean, it's really changed a lot in my life because I've kind of isolated myself a little bit more. Been more of a loner more than anything. But I'm still like trying to be social butterfly. I still talk. I still like, you know, I'll still talk to people, just but small talk. It's not anything more than that. One of the other things I make a mention of is that, you know, I put on headphones in just about every other place I go. I am not looking to try to approach because I don't want to be looked at as that kind of person. Not anymore. And the same thing goes that I'm not trying to go and do that where I'm having somebody try to approach me. I think just being comfortable throwing headphones on and just going everywhere because everybody else does it, or a lot of people do it. I just feel like It's more of a comfort zone for me. I don't know. And now I have, earbuds that are more noise canceling, and I really can't hear anything unless you really tap on my shoulder or you see me in my face and say something and try to signal me out. It's going to be tough. But, on my program here, I have talked a lot about myself and past relationships not past relationships really, but just past experiences. Because I never had serious relationships. If you've been listening to this program enough, you'll know that I've talked about my stories here. The stories of being friend zoned. I've gone through a lot of those as well. And there's a lot I've gone through. And there's only so much I can really say on this program, but also the part of let's talk about myself. Yeah, I don't say too much. It's not like I have a whole lot of things going on. I have a lot of things going on in terms of my podcasting, my career, and I talk about everything that I talk about here. But the other thing too is that what I want to talk about is not going to be what everybody else wants to talk about. So I just go along. And what's interesting is that some of the women that I talk to from the sites or from other places is because I'm talking about some of the things I talk about on this program, right? It's like I can do that. And it's fascinating and it's fun. It works. And it's nice to be able to go through all those kind of things. Anyway, more of what I said about how sugar daddy sites are suitable replacements for desperate dating apps. Sugar daddy sites are probably the most possibility of success. The most possibility of success in finding someone. Because the truth, the honesty, the women that are more quality that are available to date, to be honest with you, are on those sites. And the reason why is because the women that have gone onto the sugar daddy sites have abandoned the dating sites, the traditional dating sites, because they've not worked out for them. They've gotten to the point where they could be at one different part of the spectrum or the other. They could be just saying, well, I've already got off a bad relationship, somebody I've already met off a dating site or just met in person, and I'm just done with it. I want to get what I want. The feminist ideology comes into play. Oh, now, one of the things I'm going to tell you as well, and I haven't really thought about it like this, but this is the best way to put it. Generations ago, we had nightclubs to go to, and that's where everybody would go and meet. Ladies' night, all this kind of stuff was going on. But things evolve. And obviously, with COVID, it changed a lot. And one of the things that's also been very popular is we don't have people just going out late at night just to go out and party. Now it's during the day. It could just be like mimosas, or it could be like brunch and just like some house party and like wherever the venue is. I mean, the DJ doesn't have to be in a club. You could be anywhere else and there's no cover and you just go out and you party and it's like during the middle of the day, whatever it is. It's your sessions. And then also down here in South Florida where I'm at, there are a lot of women who go to nightclubs. They'll go to the strip clubs instead because there's more barriers to entry. It's like the sugar daddy sites. So your Plenty of Fishes, your Match.com is like a regular traditional nightclub. And then the strip clubs, not because they're really necessarily great, it's because of the fact that women are going to be catered to the most of the strip clubs. And second, it's because they know that having ladies' night in those strip clubs, they're trying to create a barrier to entry for all these men to go and come in, because they have to go and come in and spend so much money to prove they want to be in there to go and meet those girls. And they also have to go and work through having to go entertain the other girls that are performing on stage that they don't want to really be around, and not necessarily be interested in, to be with the girls they want to go and talk to. Like, it's the dichotomy of that now, it's ironic and it's very just out there. It's like, it sucks to see that. Oh yeah, Boy Sober. We got to talk about that next week too. I forgot about that part. Oh, and like I said, friend zone debates, man, we went through all this stuff. It was like really fascinating what we went through and talked about choosing independence when it comes to women, the brat era, all that kind of stuff. Like, there was a lot of trends and stuff to go and talk about. Fascinating. And it did take a while to not necessarily talk too much about sugar dating. I took time off, and it was good to go and take that time off because I know I was going into it a lot. I can't just keep doing that all the time. But like, there was so many other stories we could go on to, and it was interesting. But also, we had cuffing season come around. That's when I started coming back to that again. And it was very fascinating to go through it. So here's some of what you might have heard. And then I remember I was really interested in her. Again, simping on another level. I'm not ashamed to say it. I did this. But I remember she and I talked again on the phone because we had met online and then we got the phone numbers. We swapped phone numbers. I was one always calling her. And I got to learn a few things about her. I knew that she worked at a counter, one of the little kiosks in the mall up there, the Treasure Coast Square Mall. And I remember for whatever reason I decided to do it, I had a big thing about sending flowers. And so I ordered flowers. I think I called 1-800-Flowers, and I had flowers, like 12 red roses. I sent them up there to her with a nice note, thinking about her, all this and that. I don't think I said I loved her or anything like that, but that's when I already knew. I didn't know it, but the truth was that I did that, and all of a sudden, she just got quiet on me, silent treatment. Yeah, that's one of those stories of friend zoning where, well, it wasn't even friend zone. It was that I went after a girl that was up north of me. It was only supposed to be a one-night stand, I guess, because she had somebody else. I don't even know why she went out with me in the first place. I don't even know why I went and made the trip. Because it was really like the planning to go up there, it was like less than an hour. I just got dressed and left to go up there on a Friday night. But she was free. I was like, all right, jump. Went for it. And that's one of those parts where I was in cuffing season. It was the cooler part of the year. I remember I want to say it was like September, October. And I went up there. And like I said, it was like I only got to really see her once. And I think I really talked to her a couple times before I got up there. And then maybe talked once or twice in between, but it was like I only got to really see her, and that was it. And then I just kept trying to make it go forward, and it just was a mistake. And I should have known better. But I did that, and that sucks. But that was cuffing season. And then also the whole thing with sugar babies, and that time of year as well, where the sugar babies are going to be more rampant during cuffing season. I'm sure you might have seen some of that yourselves, where it's much more common to see much more action going on this time of year. More on that. But these are guys that are being like a little bit frat boys and kind of being like kind of bros, but they're also just in their own little rooms. They're not out to the bars or clubs because that thing doesn't even happen anymore. They're not going out to concerts. These guys that are influencers, they don't go out to be seen. If they're going to go out at all, they're going to have an entourage. They're going to go to some place, and they're going to be treated like billionaires because of their status, because of their fame, because of their fortune. That's it. And that's part of the thing too, is that with the influencers that are out there, like Ivy Wren, on the one side that she's making a lot of money for herself, but then she can find a sugar daddy. Well, these guys are basically going out with sugar babies because they know if they're going to bring these girls along, there has to be money that goes along with it, or at least the impression there's going to be money. And that's part of the thing that happened here, which is why they went along, and they can have some of these girls come along because they see what the status is going to be for them to get together. That's one of the things too. And so then I also thought about seeking soulmates or sugar daddies. Like the trendiness and the clout chasing, status seeking stuff is amplified now to 1,000,000 because they're building all these big bougie condos out there. What you got to be driving, how you got to look now is so fake and so, veneer. It's like there's not even worth going to that anymore. But that's the part. Where do you find people that just go do everyday things? Because, even if you want to go, like, okay, the gym would be a great example, but part of it is now you have people that say, well, they're going to have, I want to go ahead and take pictures of myself working out or doing this, or there's a creep factor if supposedly a guy is looking at a girl working out in the gym, and it's like, anything now that guys try to do, there's been created this apprehension, this, not a fear, but it's just like, we're not trying to ruffle anybody's feathers. I think. Now, that was another thing I was talking with Mark, my special guest on that show, about that, and talking about where the obstacles that we have and why the idea of sugar dating might be an option that's a little bit easier for someone to go ahead and go after as opposed to other things. And that was the other part we went through as well. So often for that. And then we talked about sugar daddies being the new side hustle in the gig economy. So it's like we're now in the desperation mode of sugar daddies and sugar babies because women were just trying to find the discretionary income, not even discretionary income. It's like they're taking it like the gig economy where they need to go ahead and supplement part-time income to go with a full-time income that's not cutting it. Like, what are you really doing to make this guy happy? He's not even really getting anything anyway. Let's be honest. David is getting jack shit from you. Some attention. I mean, he could be spending a whole lot less, getting a whole lot more. I don't know if it's just feeling pity for you or what it could be. We don't know what's in this guy's head. And honestly, you might as well enjoy the gravy train while you can because it's not going to last long. That was a girl in England that had this guy that was coming across the pond and visiting her, but also no sex, nothing like that. Or was like one-time sex, but other than that, it was just like, be my company while I was there. And that's pretty much all it was. So yeah, those kind of things just went on. I was like, wow, fascinating. And, you know, I mentioned Ivy Wren. I mentioned episode last week. And of course, we talked about that last week on the program. Let me just go back and play a clip from last week and just make the point of what was being done here and the level of sugar dating personified in a kick stream. This guy is 60-something years old. I mean, who was he with before? And what kind of things did he probably go through? Like, he might have made his money however he did. Who knows if he's just spending out his retirement and he just has quite a bit of savings and he's widowed or he's been divorced and all, and, you know, got kids that are already kind of by the wayside. They've already grown up or whatever, so he doesn't have to support them anymore. If this guy is just feeling like, well, this is just a good fling for me to have right now, and then he just wants to go ahead and like move across different young women that he likes, but quite a risk for him to go and just be put on camera like that and let him be subjected to this. Like, guys, I hope you realize she's using this, okay? Smart girl. She's using this out there to go and show like, oh, look, guys, you could do this, and look, here's the kind of girl you can get by spending money on her. Yeah, you're simping. I know because I'm an expert in that. Okay. But that's also, I don't spend that kind of money. I never did. No. But like, I can understand it's only a limited amount of enjoyment she gets out of that because it is just a token of her beauty and appreciation of her beauty. And then that fades away. Once again, she plays up the fact that she's getting this Yves Saint Laurent bag. And here's how she reacts.
You sure? Yeah. We don't have to. We can walk out right now.
Come on, you better get it while he's saying yes.
Yeah. We're going to get it.
He cops a feel, you know, wraps a hug around her and gets a kiss on like the cheeks. That's it. Sugar baby, sugar daddy, sugar dating. Boy, it's not going to stop. I will continue to talk about this subject into 2025 because this is such a fascinating subject. And again, people like talking about this. You like these episodes, but I am going to try to tap it down. There's moderation that needs to be done within these episodes. Can't just do it every week, but it is enjoyable. I know that. And I know we have fun with it, but yeah. I'd love to get your comments about this. I'd love to know what's going on with you and saying, you know, have you done anything like that? Been encouraged by this program about partaking in sugar dating? If you're a sugar daddy, sugar baby out there, I'd love to hear from you. I want to find out what it's been like for you this year with all the obstacles and how you've been very depraved and debaucherous.